So pre-lockdown I got a promotion and went out with my friends to celebrate. I'm not a really spontaneous person, but that night I went a little wild, got a little too drunk, was dancing, and ended up making out with some guy at the bar before I left. It wasn't a big deal. I woke up the next morning, my friends joked me about it, and we all moved on. Cut to last week, my older sister says we're finally going to meet her boyfriend. I knew she had been dating someone, just not who he was or how long, hadn't seen the dude or anything. My sister is uber cautious about bringing her boyfriend over cause they've all been kinda pieces of work. But she's really excited about this guy, he's sweet, attentive, in the military, on a good path etc. Yeah, so dude walks in and I instantly recognize him as bar makeout guy. At the time I didn't know how long they had been dating, so I dumbly assumed that this was probably before he met my sister. Neither of us acknowledged the elephant in the room and things are a little tense, but whatever. Then the crap hits the fan. Our dad asks us how long they've been together, my sister says a year and a half. So yes, he was dating my sister, seemingly exclusively, when we made out at a bar. I immediately throw this dude under the bus and call him out. My sister loses it, my dad is less than pleased, more that I was drunk and made out with a stranger, which is fair tbh not my finest moment. The night basically ends with them splitting up in front of everyone and him storming out and leaving my sister crying. My sister isn't mad at me luckily, she knows I didn't know obviously that the dude was her boyfriend, but due to the incident, this was a very small dinner with only 5 of us. Now word gets around and what got around is OP drunkenly made out with her sister's boyfriend and no real explanation past that. So people kind of automatically assumed the worst and I was constantly having to explain the situation over and over to family members, friends, etc. So after a few days of this I got sick of it and made a public post on my social media explaining the situation, exposing the dude, didn't name him though and cleared it with my sister first and basically clearing the air that I did not in fact knowingly try to steal my sister's boyfriend. It worked, everything got cleared up at once and I wasn't treated like a pariah anymore. He saw the post though as I made it public and he messaged me pissed and said I shouldn't have aired it all out cause people put 2 and 2 together and now his social circle found out and are coming down on him. Most of my family doesn't have an issue with the post, a few relatives have said it was a little much and that I should have kept it private, but they weren't saying that when they were gossiping about how I tried to steal my sister's boyfriend. So, am I the idiot here? Not the idiot. This is a messy situation and in my opinion there's no real good way to handle it. Maybe you could have waited till you could talk to your sister privately, but in reality it would have hurt just as much. Good on you for not keeping it secret though, these things always come out with time and hiding it or who knows how long would have really made it worse. You didn't know, but he knew. It's fine to kiss a stranger. It's not fine to kiss a stranger when you're in a relationship. People were coming for you, that was not right. He was the one who did something wrong. I'd honestly just block him, he's not worth your time. He doesn't like the bed he made, that's his problem. You're lucky you have an honest and trusting relationship with your sister. Unfortunate that this happened. On the other hand, if it wasn't with you, it would have been with another girl. Probably was too. So this saved your sister from continuing a relationship with a cheater and possibly marrying him. You're good, you did not use his name. You are in clear. If people correctly infer that he is a cheater, that's because he is. You were not in a relationship, he was. I, 18, and my brother, 21, lived together in a house with my parents and both grandparents. It's been this way for as long as I can remember. My parents don't work as they're both on disability and my grandparents are working. We moved in with my grandparents when I was around 2-3, so I don't remember much before then, but my grandparents have told me and my brother stories from then. Apparently the apartment we lived at was a disaster and they rarely cleaned it and my grandma invited my parents to live with them out of fear CPS will take us away. Anyways, when we moved in my grandparents were always the ones looking out for me and my brother. They cooked, they helped us with homework and taught us most life skills that we needed. They did stuff that parents should normally do. My problem isn't with my dad, he does his best with his disability, it's with my mom. My mom has done so many things that have affected me and my bro in the long run. An example, using the extra money the government gave them to use on me and my brother's needs on themselves. Never on us. She's also really overprotective and restricting. She must know exactly where we're going, what time we'll be back, and if we're buying something we must tell her what we're buying. Plus, she always compared me to my aunt, and every little thing I do she would be like she's just like auntie. Auntie always does that. I've told her so many times to stop saying it, but she doesn't listen, saying I'm just speaking the truth. It hurts when your mom doesn't see you for you, but just sees you as her younger sister. Anyways, I'm in my first year of college and just had midterms. At dinner my grandma asked me how they went and I told her I did pretty well. She smiled and said she was so proud of me. My mom then said, I helped you grow up so much. And I blew up. I told her, what have you done? You haven't done anything in my 18 years of life and brother's 21 years. You took the money the government gave you to save for us or to use on us and spent it on yourself. You never played with us and just annoyed the living hell out of us anyways. Why do you think we stay inside our rooms all day? So we don't have to deal with you. She flipped and said she's done so much for us and I should be more respectful to her, and that's when I finally said, I don't even consider you my mom. Grandma has taught me so much more about life that you have. She helped me when I needed it, when you just sat there and laughed. She started crying and my dad started yelling at me for being so ungrateful, and that's when I grabbed my coat and left. I'm leaving out so much other stuff, but I don't want to make this any bigger than it has to be. I don't feel like the idiot, I actually feel relieved for finally telling her how I felt. So, am I the idiot? Not the idiot. This is an extremely unpopular opinion, so I'll probably get hate for it, but you don't have to respect someone just because they're your parent if they don't deserve that respect. Stand your ground, because, from what little you disclosed, your mom sounds like she has narcissistic tendencies at the very least, which do much more damage than they, or the people around them, realize. I'm sorry you have to deal with this. I'm not very close to my mom for a lot of reasons, so I understand what you're feeling. Straight up ask her, what have you done for me that would make me grateful? I'm willing to be most, if not all, she can come up with as stuff your grandparents have done for you. A roof over your head. Grandparents. Food in your belly. Grandparents. Clothes on your back. Grandparents. Compassion during a difficult moment. Support when you need it. Praise when it's deserved. Hell, she can't even say she's proud of you. And I respect you so much for being strong enough to voice it, even at 18. I was also raised by my grandparents, although my mom still refuses to acknowledge that. It took me 25 years before I had the courage to tell her off directly, and even then, only because I became a mom myself and didn't want her toxic influence around my son. Stay strong. My 28 fiancé, 27, of 6 years died 2.5 years ago in a car accident. It was absolutely devastating and the worst thing I've ever been through. I have never felt pain like it and truly don't think it's possible to feel pain like it again. It's like I lost part of my soul. I spent 2 years walking around like a zombie. I've only recently started really recovering. I keep trying with them because I know they're suffering too, but being around them is making me miserable. Even before his death, my in-laws were selfish and overbearing. They'd constantly make plans and decisions for me. If I couldn't make or simply didn't want to do those plans, they'd throw giant tantrums and call me selfish. They made me miss my aunt's funeral, my mother's 50th birthday party, my graduation, every single time because they wanted to go out or booked a vacation without my knowledge. If I tried to say I'd made other plans, they'd get nasty. His sister would make snide remarks about my appearance or how I do my makeup. His dad would make bigoted comments that made me extremely uncomfortable or mock my accent, and they refused to let me plan my own wedding. I ended up with a dress I hated because they said every dress I loved made me look ugly. We live over 4 hours away, so visiting them was already taxing, so throwing in their personalities on top made visiting them all the less appealing. When my fiancé died, I tried to support them as much as possible and looked over their flaws. But it's now 5 years later and they still demand I drive to theirs twice a month. They've never come to me, control what I do by bombarding me with passive-aggressive, guilt trip messages if I make plans without them, tried to force me to legally change my last name to theirs, even though I was always going to keep mine, and call the dog I adopted to help cope with a loss their dog, too. They call him the only grandchild they'll ever have. A few weeks ago I started tentatively dating an old friend and they found out and started saying if I really loved my fiancé I'd never date again and called me a whore. The accusation was heartbreaking and a huge setback in my recovery, so I cooled things off with a friend. They told me that was the only way to honor my fiancé and that they expect me to live the rest of my life alone, as you only get one shot at love. I can't imagine how painful losing their child must be, so I feel bad for potentially cutting them out as I was such a big part of their son's life for so long, but they're emotionally exhausting and I don't know how much I can take. My mother thinks I should just get over it and tolerate them while they work through their grief and that I'd be in the wrong if I didn't. My dad is more on my side. Would I be the idiot? Not the idiot. Your mother thinks you should get over it and never date again your whole life to appease some toxic people who live 4 hours away. She's as crazy as they are. They're extremely toxic and bad for your mental health. You wouldn't be here writing this if you didn't already know that. Walk away and never look back. They're a part of your past. They should have been part of your past long ago. But they should have no control over your life in any way. All the things you describe doing and saying are either narcissistic, vitriolic, overbearing, manipulative or insane. Don't walk away from these people. Run and never look back. They were already making your life hell and would have destroyed your relationship with their son the first time you showed any sign of developing a backbone. The fact that he allowed them to treat you this way shows he didn't give a crap about your feelings either. He put them first. I think talking to a therapist would be a good idea. You really need to work on yourself and your self-esteem before getting into another relationship. You don't need to help them work through their grief by becoming a punching bag. Go ahead and cut back on contact because they're dragging you down. You will not be in the wrong for moving on with your life after 2.5 years. That's what people do, they move on and continue to live. Stop pandering to these needy, selfish people and live your own life. I'm not 18 yet and I still live with my parents. My parents absolutely hate each other and they fight every day. They almost never sleep in the same bed anymore. They said they want a divorce, but they won't do it because they have children. About 2 days ago, I was trying to sleep. It was about 1 a.m. and I had school the next day. My mom was yelling at my dad because he put his brother before the family, and my dad replied that he didn't even want to be in the family anymore and the only reason he stays is because of the children. They started screaming, crying, and breaking things. They were talking about how they wish they never got married. I'm used to this, but I'd finally had enough. I went downstairs and said something along the lines of "Shut up. I'm trying to sleep. I don't care if you get a divorce. It's better than having to listen to you guys scream and cry like children every single day. So yeah, go ahead and get a divorce. If you really cared about your children, you'd want them to be in a better environment than this. They haven't spoken to me or each other since. Am I the idiot? OP, find an adult you trust to be a confidential listening ear and talk your feelings out. It's fine if you don't look for a therapist. At this point it sounds like what you need is someone who will actually listen and empathize with the stress you've been under. Being the child in a failing marriage isn't ideal at all, and you need support to get you through. As someone whose parents were exactly like that, I totally get the frustration. You're entitled to a safe environment that is conducive to learning, and sleep is a major part of that, and being woken up by your parents screaming at each other definitely doesn't allow for that. Hugs hun, please find someone to talk to such as a school counselor or teacher or family friend. Definitely not the idiot. It's not fair on you and your siblings, I assume you have siblings, to be placed in that environment every day and then told that you're there because they don't want to negatively impact you. Well, guess what, mom and dad? You already did. You did the right thing. OP, maybe hearing from their own kid that their reasons for staying together are bullcrap will wake them up. I'm 21 and my sister is 18. The day my sister turned 18, she moved out with some friends and they all share a small apartment together just a mile away from us. I however stayed because my college was close to home and I wouldn't waste much on living expenses. I started giving my parents money for rent, electricity and water, and I buy my own stuff that I need like laundry detergent, groceries, etc. 4 months ago, my sister came out and told us she was 2 months pregnant. My parents were obviously disappointed, but they hid that from her and offered to help in any way with the baby. And they've been doing pretty much everything. They've gone out and bought baby clothes, toys, a bassinet, bottles, blankets, everything. Now because my sister lives with other roommates, she said she can't have the baby there with her and her boyfriend and convinced my parents to let the baby live here since she's less than a 5-minute drive away from us. My parents agreed with no argument even though they clearly weren't expecting that, and I didn't voice any opinion about it because it's their house and they can decide on what they want. However, I didn't know they were planning on having me share my own room with my nephew until my sister came home the other day and started moving the stuff my parents bought into my room. I told her there's no way the baby's gonna be in my room. She was so confused and said it was obvious the baby would stay here because where else was he gonna sleep? I honestly thought since she'd be needing to feed him every couple hours the first few months that he'd sleep in the living room with my sister, and then when he started sleeping through the night, he'd stay in my parents' room. Theirs is a lot bigger than mine anyways. To be honest, it bothered me that nobody even asked me for permission or how I'd feel about that and just assumed I'd be cool with sharing my room with a baby that's not even my responsibility. I flat out told her no and took out all the baby's stuff. Of course she gets pissed and goes crying to my parents that I'm being mean and unsupportive of her pregnancy. My parents say I should give up half my room to the baby because family take care of each other, but yet she's happy to dump her baby here instead of finding a new place to live. I told them she's the one who got pregnant and it's not fair that I have to give up my room because of her decisions. My sister stormed off and hasn't contacted us since. My parents keep telling me to apologize to her, and even a few other relatives are telling me I'm being cruel for not wanting to make such a small sacrifice for my own nephew. Which isn't fair. Babies cry all the time at all hours of the night. I'm not about to deal with all that in my own room which I parent for, but that somehow makes me the bad guy here. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot she got pregnant at 18. If she's moving back in the house with her boyfriend, your privacy matters more than hers. She wants the baby in your room, crying at 3 a.m. It should be in her room so she would deal with it. Furthermore, if the baby is in her room, it will be more motivation for her to get her own place. She decided to keep the baby. You don't need to be woken up at 3 a.m. She should. How about her and her boyfriend move into your parents'? She shares a room with their baby and you move into their apartment. How is this even supposed to work? Who's caring for the baby if it's in your room and your sister is in her apartment? Who leaves their baby somewhere else? This whole thing is nuts. You're expected to share a room with a newborn without so much as a warning? No. You parent, you're owed at the very least the courtesy of a discussion. That said, this might be your cue to move on. You're going to have to get your own place at some point. You're already used to paying for rent, groceries, etc., and this seems like as good a time as any to bail.